Hello friends, welcome to Byju's classes. Today we are going to take up the topic of illiteracy and disparities in education. This topic is the last topic of sociology paper 2, part of challenges of social transformation. So in this session, what we are going to do is we'll find out the axis along which disparities and inequalities exist when it comes to education. For example, gender is one of those lines along which disparity exists. The male literacy rate is higher than the female literacy rate. So there are some other axes as well. We'll find those out. And apart from these things, we'll also just look at the education sector. What is the status of education in case of India? What is the status of higher education in case of India? What is the status of research and development in India? And also, what is the present status when it comes to skill development? These three, four things apart from the disparities in education sector. This is what we are going to cover. So we'll start with inequalities, disparities when it comes to education. On the screen, you can see some of the factors along which there exist disparities when it comes to education. There are regional disparities. In some states, the literacy rates are good. There are some states the literacy rates are not that good. We look at these states. Rural, urban. In rural areas, the literacy rate is generally less as compared to the literacy rate in urban areas. Gender-based disparity. The literacy rates among males is higher than the literacy rate among females. Caste-based disparities are there. We'll see that. And not only caste-based, religion-based disparities are also there. We also see this. Imbalance between primary and higher education. What do we mean by this? The number of people who are enrolling themselves for primary education, many of them will drop out, many of them will not take up higher education. So now the number of people who are enrolled for higher education is much less than those who are enrolled for primary education, and this thing decreases in a very steep manner. Another thing here with our education is ensuring employability. Those who are getting educated, are they employable in different industries services sector? That is also a question. At different points of time, many of the industry bodies they have raised this question. We are not creating employable graduates. So we are just giving them some education, but the education is not relevant. So we look at some of these dimensions. Apart from that, in the case of India, the dropout rates are very high. We look at some of the dimensions here as well. So these are the lines along which disparity exists when it comes to education. One by one, we will look at all of these factors. First thing, regional disparity. On the screen, you can see the map of India, and this map is basically the literacy rate map. The places which are deep blue in color, they denote those places which have very high literacy rate. For example, the deepest color, it indicates the literacy rate between 85 to 94%. And the lighter shades, they denote that the literacy rate is very less. So on the map itself, you can see that there are some regions in India where you have 85 to 94% literacy rate. Places like Kerala, places like Mizoram and Tripura. But there are also places where the literacy rate is very low. For example, places like Bihar, the literacy rate should be between 60 to 65. So this map is not uniform, and there is great variation. Just think like this, no? From 60 to 65 to 85 to 94. So almost 30%, more than 30% deviation can be there in literacy rates in different parts of India. So regional variation. We can look at these numbers as well. See, all these numbers that you see are the numbers I have taken from 2011 census. So there are some states like Kerala, the literacy rate is almost 94%, 93.91. So these are the states which are among the top 15. These are the states in which the literacy rates and union degrees, in which the literacy rate is more than 80%. So top 15 states union degrees have literacy rate more than 80%. So but here you can note one thing, that the larger states are less. Not many large states will be there. Kerala or Himachal, Maharashtra. These are some of the larger among states. I mean, Himachal is not very large. So Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, they are the ones who are performing really well when it comes to education. And then there are states which are lagging behind. So these are the states which are below the national average. The national average is 74.04%. The states that you can see on the screen, they are the worst performer when it comes to literacy. Bihar is ranked at the bottom. Rajasthan, Andhra Pradesh, they are also not doing well. Now, from this you can understand that yes, we have regional disparities when it comes to education. Another dimension we'll see now. The image that you can see on the screen right now. From this, we can understand two different kinds of disparities: rural-urban disparities, as well as the gender disparity. Here, the first two illustrations that you see, they talk about the literacy rate among males and females in rural areas. Right hand side is the literacy rate for urban areas for male and female, and the green bar that you see, they talk about the literacy rate for 2011. The red color, pinkish red color bar, it is the literacy rate in 2001. Bluish bar is literacy rate in 1991. So in all the four graphs that you see, you see that literacy rate has consistently increased over the period of time. So it has increased from 1991 to 2001 to 2011. So that is something that's positive. But what we need to see is the difference between the literacy rates among male and female. For example, in the rural areas, the green bars, these two things. So the difference in literacy rates between males in rural areas and females in rural areas. So 77.15% literacy rate among males in rural areas. 57.93% literacy rate among females in rural areas. So almost 20% differences there, according to 2011 census. What is the corresponding difference between urban males and urban females? The difference is quite less, almost around 10%. 9-10%, that is the difference between urban males literacy rate and rural males literacy rate. Urban males literacy rate and urban females literacy rate. Now, another differential we will do. What is the difference between literacy rates between urban areas and rural areas? Now, let's compare rural male with urban male. Rural male and urban male, the difference is somewhere around 11%. What about rural female and urban female? So around 79 minus 57. So here again the difference is too high, 20%. So between urban and rural area, the gap is huge among females. The gap is less among males. Between rural male and rural female, there also the difference is huge. Between urban male and urban female, difference is there, but it's not too huge. 10% difference is there. So gender disparity exists. At the same time, rural urban disparity exists. All these things are data from 1991, 2001, and 2011. We compare the 2011 data. You can do it correspondingly for 2001 as well as 1991 data. So the point here is there is difference in literacy between rural and urban areas and between the genders. So this shows that there is gender inequality in education, there is gender disparity, as well as there is disparity between urban and rural areas. Now we will look at disparities across different social religious boundaries. For example, this is the data from 2000 to 2001. On the screen, you can see data related to gross enrollment rate in higher education, and this data is for the year 2000 to 2001. So here you can observe that when it comes to enrollment in higher education, all India level enrollment is 12.4%. So this is an all India average. But among scheduled castes, the gross enrollment rate is much less, 7.5%. OBCs it is 7%, scheduled tribes it is 6.8%, and among Muslims it is even worse. These numbers that you see have increased over a period of time. For 2004 to 2015, all India rate has increased to 23.6. OBCs they have performed better, 22.1%. Scheduled castes 18.5, Muslims 13.8, scheduled tribes 13.3%. This shows that these particular social religious communities, OBCs, SC, ST, Muslims, they are lagging behind the all India average. Literacy rate for 2000 2001, literacy rate for 2014-15. Now here also you can see a change. Scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, it was 54.7%. For scheduled tribe it was 47.1%. Both have had an increase, but their literacy rate has been less than that of the national average. So in 2011 itself, the literacy rate of India was 74%. So these communities, the literacy rate is less. At the same time, the enrollment in higher education is also much less. Graduates as proportion of population for 2004-2005. Now you can see here among Hindus the number of graduates. How many graduates are there in the age category 20 to 30 years? Compare it with Muslims, how many graduates they have in the age category 20 to 30 years. So among Hindus it is around 18.6%, general category OBC 6.5%, SC 3.3%. So overall if you see it will be more than 25%. But among Muslims it is hardly 4.5%. So from this image also you can understand that Muslims lag behind as compared to Hindus. Other minorities are somewhere in between. Among Hindus also you can see the enrollment rate among general category is much more than enrollment among OBCs and SCs. So this image also gives us a fair idea who are lagging behind in the process of social transformation that is taking place. The image that you see on screen right now is about dropout rates. Many children, they are enrolled in education, but over a period of time, they will drop out. There can be multiple reasons why they are dropping out. Maybe for the child, maybe they do not have the requisite infrastructure, like facilities. Sometimes children drop out because the parents think that they're not getting anything out of it. They're just going to school, but at the end of the day, no skill is being gained over there. You do not have proper teachers, you do not have proper facilities. So what is the whole point of sending children to school? It would be better if the child is working somewhere. That will at least contribute to the family income. So poverty and failure of education system to some extent can also lead to increasing dropouts. So on the screen that you have right now, you can observe data related to dropout rates. What do we mean by dropout rates? Well, there are children who are enrolled in school education, but over a period of time, they might drop out. There can be multiple factors here. One of the major factors here is some parents feel that our education system is not contributing anything. They're sending their children to school, but the children are not getting anything. So instead of sending them to school, why not get them to work? If they're working, at least they will contribute to the family incomes. And because of India, there are so many families who are under poverty line, who find it difficult to even afford 2 square meals a day. So rather than sending the children to school, if the child is not getting anything, let them work somewhere. For the girl child, again, there can be some specific issues. In many schools, you do not have the basic infrastructure, like toilet facilities. So many times, girl children, they also drop out because of this reason. Apart from this, tribal children, scheduled caste children, they might have their own specific issues. For example, a tribal child might find it difficult to grasp whatever is important in school. The culture is different. The tribal languages are different. What is important in school is different. There can be some sort of prejudice against children who are from the tribal communities, children who are from scheduled caste communities, minority background. So those things can also contribute to dropouts. Whatever the case, these high dropout rates are one of the major causes of concern for us. Now, this particular image that you see on the screen gives us an idea about the dropout rates. It also tells us about the dropout rates among different communities. Now, what can we infer from this particular illustration? Now, we have data from 2005 to 2013, 14, this period of time, and we have data for basically 3 categories here. The blue bar, it shows us the all India average dropout rates. The red bar, it shows us the dropout rates among the scheduled caste community. The green bar, it tells us about the dropout rate among the scheduled tribe community. So one thing you can notice is, in each of the year, you'll observe that all India dropout rate is the minimum. Dropout rate among scheduled tribes is maximum. In between, you have the dropout rate among scheduled caste communities. Another thing we can observe here is the dropout rates have generally had a declining trend. So that is something that is positive. More and more children are not dropping out. So this can be a positive trend. But what is alarming is the dropout rates among the scheduled tribe communities and scheduled caste communities. Just look at the 2013-2014 data. So among scheduled tribes, those who were enrolled in the first standard, by 10th standard, highly likely 60% of them will have dropped out. This is around 60%. Among scheduled caste community, those who were enrolled in the first class, highly likely 50% of them will drop out. Among the general category, among an all India level, somewhere around 47-48% people will drop out by the time they reach 10th standard. So these are data for 1 to 10th standard. So dropout rates are a major concern, and in dropout rates also there is disparity across different communities. Now another major concern here, employability. Now on this image, you can see the percentage of graduates who are considered employable by industry. So there are different streams here: sales, business development, operations, clerical, different types of streams, teaching, etc. And again, the different bars they will denote the different kind of education qualification a particular candidate has. So this particular illustration shows how many of these candidates from a specific background are considered employable in a particular sector. For example, let's talk about sales and business development. So here, in this particular sector, around 10% of the arts candidates are considered to be employable. Around 12 to 13% of the commerce candidates are considered to be employable. Around 15% of management candidates are considered employable. Those who are from the science background, they are more suitable. Around 20%. 20% of the science candidates are employable in sales and business development. So this way, across sectors, employability has been found out for people who are belonging to different streams. But you can observe one thing here, that in most of the sectors, not even 25% of the candidates are considered employable. So the education that we are providing, that is not enjoying employability of people. Hardly 25%. Only science candidates in IT enabled and business processing sector, science candidates in clerical secretarial work, they are more than 25% employable. So or else not even 25% employable. So if you are having 100 candidates from arts background who are applying for a sales and development job, only 10 will get it. Only 10 are employable. Many 10 will also not get it. So this is also an alarming trend. This is a study on engineering graduates. So how much they are employable? The different engineering graduates here we are checking out. So here you can observe different areas where engineering candidates can apply for a job. Red represents male candidates, yellow represents female candidates. You can observe that there are some areas where engineering candidates are more employable. For example, IT enabled services. Apart from this, in other areas, for example, design, software development, they are not employable. Hardly 4 to 6% of them are employable. So the kind of candidates we are checking out, they are not good for the industry. And that is something we should be concerned about. Another dimension, school dropout rates across states. And this is for standard of 1 to 5. We have already seen school dropout rates for 1 to 10. Since we are covering larger number of rates, the school dropout rates will be higher there. Here we are just covering 1 to 4 standard. Here also you can see some disparities. Some states, the school dropout rates is very less. For example, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, school dropout rates are less. All India average is 29%. But states like UP, Rajasthan, Bihar, the school rates are very high. 1 to 5 standard. For example, Rajasthan, more than 50% of the students are dropping out by the time they are reaching 5th standard. By the time they reach 10th standard, just imagine the scenario. So if you are having 100 students who have been enrolled in standard 1, by the 5th standard, the class strength will be just 49. By 10th standard, we don't know how many. So there is also regional variation when it comes to school dropout rates. So these are some axes, some lines along which disparity exists when it comes to education. So these are the dimensions along which disparity exists when it comes to education. Now what we look at the status of education in India. We'll start with the primary education sector. So these are the dimensions along which disparity exists in India when it comes to education. Now what we do, we look at status of education in India. Some of the data pointers which will help us understand the sector better. How much are we spending on education? Different committees have suggested that we should spend somewhere around 6% of our GDP on education. The new education policy in 1968 and 1986, both these policies have suggested that 6% has to be spent on education. The recent draft education policy of 2016, it also talked about the same. But our spending on education has never increased beyond 4.3%. And at present, we are spending somewhere around 3.5% of our GDP on education. What is the latest rate? We already have a rough idea. It's around 7.4%. But what is the major concern here is there is regional imbalance. We saw Kerala has very high literacy rate. States like Bihar, they're lagging behind. Male and female literacy rate, there is a difference. And we are lagging behind when it comes to the global literacy rate. Global literacy rate is around 84%. We are 74%. India is said to be having the largest illiterate population in the world. The numbers are huge. What about elementary education? Around 14 lakh schools we have, around 20 crore children are enrolled in elementary schools. But the thing of concern is the dropout rates. So at present, if a child is enrolled in the school, if 10 children are enrolled in the school, by the time they reach 8th standard, 4 of them will drop out. And already we have seen by the time they reach 5th standard, around more than 20% of them drop out. What about attendance rates? Now, 71% is the attendance rate all over India. But here also there is a regional variation. For example, states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, the attendance rate is more than 90%. States like Bihar, UP, West Bengal, Manipur, it is less than 60%, 50 to 15%. And on any particular day, 25% of the teachers are also absent. So teacher absenteeism is also quite high. But the major concern we have is learning outcome. ASA report by Pratham, it points out that a child who is in 5th standard, 5th grade is not able to read a textbook which a grade 2, standard 2 child should be able to read. A child who is in the 5th grade is not able to solve a maths problem which a child of grade 2 should be able to solve. So learning outcomes are not what we expect them to be. What is the mean year of schooling in case of India? That means, on an average, what is the total duration of education a person would have acquired in case of India? In India, it is around 5.12 years. Average, all over India, average Indian will be acquiring just 5 years of education. China, Brazil, they perform much better. There was emerging economies. So to compare ourselves with emerging economies, in China and Brazil, they spend more years in education. The dropout rates we saw are quite high, and these dropout rates are very high for some specific communities. SC, ST minorities among the dropout rates are very high. Student attendance rates, we already have a rough idea. The student attendance rates among these some of the educational backward states are less. Out of school children, those children who should have been in school but they are no longer in school, maybe they have dropped out or maybe they have never enrolled in school. So here, good thing is the number of out of school children has declined over a period of time. But what is the cause of concern is out of school children, the proportion of out of school children is very high from certain communities. Muslim, SC, ST children with disability, they constitute the bulk of out of school children. The pupil teacher ratio, that means for each teacher, how many students are there? That means how many, one teacher teaches how many students. Now, this pupil teacher ratio has gradually improved over a period of time. But still, there is an imbalance. It needs to be further improved. Regional variations are there. Some states, southern states have done well, but some of the northern states, this pupil teacher ratio is not good. There are also instances in which there will be one classroom, one teacher, but children of different standards will be studying in the same room. So those kind of things can also impact a child's learning. So that is also area of concern. There are many instances in which we find teachers who do not have any requisite professional qualification. There was a study we found out that which estimated that 8.1 lakh teachers are there who do not have the required qualifications, and majority of them are concentrated in few states. States like Bihar, UP, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. 72% of these 8.1 lakh teachers came from here. Infrastructure is very important. Infrastructure can provide a conducive environment in which learning can take place. Now, different reports point to the fact that many of the schools do not have the basic infrastructure. It was found out that 4.8% government schools had all the basic and facilities. So, according to the laws, each and every school should have some basic facilities like toilet facility. These things are required. Now, only 4.8% government schools had all these things. 33% had up to 7 facilities, but 30% did not have even 5 of these basic facilities. So, it is a matter of concern. And as I told you, it's a report found out that the learning outcomes are not good. So, this is about the status of education, specifically school education. Now, what we do, we look at the status of higher education in case of India. So, now we will discuss the status of higher education in India. Now, first thing, how many students are getting enrolled in higher education? In 1950s, when we are becoming independent, after that, just after independence, 1951, only 2 lakh people used to get enrolled in higher education. But at present, around 3.33 crore get enrolled. So the number of enrollments has definitely increased, which is a positive thing. But here again, there are variations. Industry disparities are there, as well as there is disparity across different communities. Just a few moments back, we saw that enrollment among scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, and Muslims is much less than the all India average. Competition. How many graduates we have, how many postgraduates, diploma holders we have. So 80% are enrolled in undergraduate education, 11.4% they take up postgraduate qualifications, 7.2% are trying to go for diplomas. So this is the composition of our higher education sector. When it comes to fulfilling the requirements of higher education sector, that means whether institutions are in private sector or whether we have public institutions, we find that 63.9%, that means almost 64% of the colleges in India, they are private. And it is catering to the needs of around 60% of students. So 60% of students are enrolled in colleges which are in private areas, and we have around 64% of colleges which are private colleges. What about quality of education that we have? The quality of higher education has always been debatable. We might have increased the number of colleges in recent times, but the quality of education is not very good. The different rankings that we see, rankings of different higher education institutions, very few of our colleges and universities are among the top. The best institutes in India, for example, the IITs, IIMs, they also do not find a place among the top 100 to 100 ranks. For example, Times Higher Education ranking in 2012-2013, the topmost Indian institution was IIT Kharagpur, it also ranked 234 in that. QS system in 2012, here the topmost Indian education institution was IIT Delhi, the rank was 200. So within 100, 200 we do not have issues. So that is something we should be concerned about. So within 200 we do not have many universities. There was a report which found out that 88 of the 130 deemed universities, the quality is poor. We do not have very good faculty. Research doesn't happen. If it happens, the quality of research is not that good. We are not producing new knowledge. We are not creating knowledge which can be utilized. The mechanisms for accountability, that is also not there. Generally, the institutions will focus on rote learning. The governance structures are such that innovations becomes difficult. The institutions are heavily regulated. The institutions are controlled. As a result of which, it becomes very difficult to bring about innovations. When it comes to governance, some specific challenges are there. For example, if you want to set up a new institution, you will have to take up multiple approvals, multiple permissions. So the procedure is very difficult. And since you are having so many veto points, it also leads to corruption. Only those who are influential, only those who are having political, and they are the ones who are starting universities. It is very difficult to start universities. Apart from that, governmental intervention is too high. There are a lot of other barriers when it comes to setting up universities. When it comes to funding of higher education, in case of India, only 0.7% of India's GDP is spent on higher education. Total we are spending around 3.5%, and in higher education only 0.7%. Compared with countries like US, UK, China, US is 2.9%, China is around 1.5%. And again, whatever we are spending, a large chunk of it actually goes for salaries, pensions, these kind of things, for rents, maintenance. So how much are we actually spending on research and development or other education activities? That is also a matter of concern. Standing Committee of Human Resource Development in 2017, they pointed out some specific challenges when it comes to higher education. So first thing they're saying, we do not have sufficient resources. 65% of UGC budget is utilized by central universities, and more number of students are enrolled in other institutions. So central universities they get larger share of the budget, but the number of students enrolled are less. There are a lot of teacher vacancies. 36% of the professor posts, 46% of the associate professor posts, they're line vacant. So we are also having a faculty crunch. It is also said that we do not have quality faculty, and whatever faculty we have, whatever positions we have, that also is line vacant. Accountability, performance, evaluation measures of teachers is not there. Generally, what there are different parameters by which faculties held accountable. For example, sometimes you have peer review systems. In some cases, students will rate their teachers. But those kind of mechanisms we are not having at present. Apart from that, whatever higher education we are providing to our students, with higher education, many times they find it difficult to get a job. So we are creating graduates, we are creating postgraduates, but we are not creating employable population. So again, that is a major cause of why for us. So when it comes to higher education, the quality of learning, the resource crunch, accessibility of higher education, governance mechanism, accountability mechanism, creation of employable population. So these are some of the major concerns that we have. Now, another dimension of education we will look at research and development. Again, a part of education system. What are some of the concerns when it comes to R&D in case of India? First thing, how much are we spending on research and development? We spend somewhere around 0.6% of our GDP. Countries like US, China, Israel, South Korea, just look at their numbers. In South Korea, they're spending somewhere around 4.2% of GDP. In Israel, they're spending 4.3% of GDP. So our spending on research and development is less. Apart from this, what are some of the major concerns here? First thing, we do not have much linkage between industry and industrial research. We have different industry organizations, but they will not be having their own specific research and development. So the first major challenge that we have is absence of linkage between industry and industrial research. Now, what do we mean by this? Now, you might have observed different firms, international firms, they will have their own R&D division. A Samsung, a General Electric, they will have their own R&D divisions. But in case of many of Indian firms, they will not have their own separate R&D division. So industry is not investing in industrial research. There is also absence of linkage between university and industry. They will also not be linked. If university and industry are linked together, we can solve multiple problems. Some of the problems that industry faces, those problems can be resolved by some project in the university. The university faculty, the students, they can take up the problem and they can research on it and they can provide them solution, they can provide them solution. At the same time, those who are in the universities and not in the universities, they might work as interns, apprentices in the industry. That way, their skills will also be relevant. They will gain some skills which can be utilized in the industry. So both can be benefited. Industry can be benefited, university can get benefited if there is a linkage. But this kind of linkage is also lacking. Very few institutions in India will have these linkages. 12% of graduates in case of India, they will go for postgraduate degree. Only 1% will go for PhD research. So very few people are actually pursuing research. So that pyramid is very steep from graduation to postgraduate to research. So we do not have sufficient number of people who are pursuing research. Let's look at the number of researchers per 10,000 labor force. In US, if there are 10,000 people in the labor force, 79, almost 80 people are doing research. In China, it is 18. In Kenya, it is 6. But in case of India, it is 4. So we are lagging behind even countries like Kenya when it comes to research. We also do not have linkage between CSIR and universities. Council for Scientific Industrial Research, government setup. Now they also carry out research specifically related to industries. Now between universities and CSIR, maybe we could have promoted linkages. That also we have not done. We also have scarcity of funds. How much we are spending as percentage of GDP? 0.6% is less. In US, whatever research they are carrying out, 66% of the research is funded by the industry. In case of India, it is just 23%. So one third of what industry spends in US, we are spending in India. On top of this, many of our researchers, they move out of the country. 40% of our researchers, they migrate out. Also, for promoting research and development, we need to develop an ecosystem. We need to have an ecosystem which promotes scientific innovations. And one of the major pillar of any ecosystem which promotes innovation is intellectual property rights. We need to have a very good intellectual property rights regime. That means if you're creating something, you also need to protect it. You are the one who has created it. Whatever you have created is a product of your own intellect, so you have right over it. That needs to be protected. It is said that we do not have a very good intellectual property rights regime, which also needs to be improved. Number of patents that Indians have per million. Just 17 per million population. We have patents. Just 17 patents per million population. In South Korea, it is around 4,500 per million population. Compare the numbers. 17 on one side, 4,500 on one side. That is the difference between India and South Korea when it comes to scientific innovation. When it comes to knowledge index, our rank is also very bad. 109 out of 145 countries. So all these things point to the fact that when it comes to research and development, we are not performing well. Multiple areas, we are lagging behind. So this is about R&D. Now what about skill development? What is our status and what are some of the major challenges when it comes to skill development? So when it comes to skill development, what is the challenge that we have in front of us? And what are some of the challenges when it comes to skill development? Now, first thing we need to understand the magnitude of the challenge. How many people we need to skill? So how many people in India are below the age of 25? Around 54% of the population. Average age of India by 2020 will be 29 years. While the average age of other countries like Japan, USA, it will be more than 40. In Japan, it will be 47 years. In USA, it will be 40 years. So we are relatively a young country. We'll have a young population while these countries, USA, Japan, Europe, they're going to have an aging population. The labor force of the industrialized world over the next 20 years is going to shrink by 4%. It will reduce. But in case of India, it is going to increase. It's going to expand. Certain sectors of our economy, for example, the micro, small, medium enterprises, they're the ones who can create jobs. They're the ones who are extremely intensive. Now, how much do they contribute to India right now? Just 17% of our GDP comes from micro, small, medium enterprises. But countries like Taiwan, China, in Taiwan, 85% of the GDP is coming from MSMEs. In case of China, 60% is coming from MSMEs. Now, these are industries which can take up labor, and they are huge in these countries. But in case of India, it is very small. So this is also going to be a challenge. Where are we going to accommodate our labor force? How many people in India they acquire formal skill training? That means they go to some skill training institutes and they acquire those skills. In case of India, it's hardly 4%, 4 to 5%. In case of a country like South Korea, it's 96%. So look at the difference. 96%, 4%. And what is a major cause of concern is this. How many people are entering into the workforce age every year? Around 26.14 million. That means around 2.6 crore people are entering into the workforce age group greater than 14 years. But not everyone will be looking for a job. If you use the labor force participation rate, average labor force participation rate, from that we can find that around 1.6 crore people want to be in the labor force. So every year, 1.6 crore people need to be provided skills so that they are gainfully employed. But this is not the only number that has been skilled. We also have to skill those people who do not have required skills and who are working in the agriculture sector. In case of India, there are a lot of people who are in the agriculture sector and who are just design employees. We have large number of people who are in the agriculture sector who do not contribute in the agriculture. Even if you take them out from agriculture, the production of agriculture will not be impacted. So we also have a backlog of people who are in the farm sector, some of them are in non-farm sector, who also require to be skilled, or at least whatever basic skills they have needs to be updated. That skill is no longer relevant. So around 29 crore such people are there. So every year, 1.6 crore people, and also a backlog of 29.8 crore people. So if I have to have a plan for the next 5 years, then we have to target 5 into 1.6 crore people, that is 8 crore people. Also, we have to train somewhere around 30 crore people. So for the next 5 years, our target should be skilling somewhere around 30 crore, 38 crore people. And it is massive. This is a huge challenge in front of India, skill development. But our programs that we have had for skilling people, they have faced different kinds of challenges. What are some of the challenges when it comes to skill development? Firstly, the kind of attitude that people have towards skill development. We still have the traditional mindset. People still feel that they should directly try to get a job. Only if they're not able to get a job, they should go for some skill development programs. Generally, it should be the other way around. You should acquire skills. On the basis of the skills, you should apply for a job. But in case of India, it is the other way around. If you do not have any job, then only go for skills. Then there's also a problem from the side of the industry, especially the MSME sector. They also do not distinguish between a skilled and an unskilled employee. Ideally, a skilled labor should get more wages as compared to an unskilled labor. Since there is no such differentiation, what is the incentive for someone who is unskilled to take up skills if he's going to get the same amount of wages? The different programs that we have had for skill development. Many times there is an allegation about the different kind of programs that we have initiated for skill development. The allegation here is these programs do not cater to the demand of the industry. We are providing some skills to our population, but the industry requires something else. So there is some sort of misfit. Different kind of skills are required. For example, soft skills are required by the industry. How you are going to communicate with subordinates, with your superiors, with your colleagues. So these kind of skills are something not required. We focus on some other kind of things. So alignment is not proper. Skill development program is spread across multiple institutions. Different government departments, different government ministries, they will be going for skill development. At one point of time, there were somewhere around 20 departments of government providing skill development, 20 departments ministries. So in such a scenario, what happens is there is no uniformity. So there is no uniform standards. There is no uniform parameter of skill development. It also causes problems. Different states, again, they will face different challenges. So there is also regional variation when it comes to skill development. Some states are doing well, some states are not doing well. Many of the skill development programs that we have had, they have been free programs. That means you don't need to contribute anything. A free program is running, people can enroll. Now the problem with free programs or anything which is free is people do not value it. So many candidates, they will register for these programs, they will turn up 1 or 2 days and then they will not. Seriousness among candidates also lacks when you are having free training programs. Whenever you go for skill development, you enroll for the program. After that, there is a certification mechanism. That means whether you have acquired the skills or not is tested by some third party body. Now in case of India, what happens is there are multiple certification systems. So A will be testing your skills, and if it finds that you have acquired the skills, it will give you a certificate. Some people will go for B, another certification system. If B finds that you have acquired skills as per its standards, you will get a certificate. So when you are having multiple certification systems, it can be confusing at times. Now which system is good, which system is bad. So there is no uniformity here. Now let's say this is an employer, C is an employer. Now in front of C there can be 2 candidates. One would have got a certificate as per A, another would have got a certificate as per B. Now there will be a dilemma for C. Which certificate is better? Which particular candidate is better? It will find it difficult to understand. So if you had a uniform certification system, these kind of issues would have been resolved. Another challenge we face is we do not have very good teachers who can provide skills. We do not have teachers who have experience in teaching as well as who have experience in industry. So those kind of experts also we are lacking. Industry employer linkage is not there. So those who are training, they don't know exactly what kind of skills is required by the industry. So in that case, there is this mismatch. So demands for the industry, those kind of skills are not incorporated. In case of India, almost 93% of our labor force is in the informal sector. So since they're in the informal sector, it becomes very difficult to understand what kind of skills they already have. See, if you have to provide skills to the population, you need to understand what skills they already have so that we can go for incremental development. Since they are in the informal sector, we find it very difficult to understand at present what is their status, what are the skills is required. Also, another challenge of skill development is women employees or women labor force. We do not have a large women labor force. Hardly 27-28% of our women labor force. We also need to focus on women. We have to ensure that more women participate in labor force. We need to provide skills to women. Now, even if you provide skills to our labor force, the challenge that will be with us is creating jobs for them. If you provide people skills, their expectation increases. And if you're not able to provide them jobs which is appropriate for the skills they have, there will be status frustration, can lead to conflicts, can impact social cohesion. But how do you create these jobs? You need to promote entrepreneurs. We need to have more entrepreneurs who can create enterprises which will take up these labors. So we need to promote entrepreneurs who will in turn create enterprises. These enterprises will now take up the people who are scaling. But when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to innovation, they also will not perform well. So when it comes to innovation, our rank is somewhere around 76 out of 144 countries. So we also not very, very innovative. Support environment that is required for entrepreneurs that is also lacking somewhere. We have hardly 0.09 companies for every 1,000 working age population. And also the kind of companies that we have, organizations that we have, they are primarily factor driven. Now what do we mean by factor driven? The companies that we have at present, the main selling point of these companies is the product that they sell is cheap. That is the reason they are competitive. So the advantage, the selling point of our organizations is they're selling cheap products. Now how they're able to create cheap products? Because again, the factors of production, you can get these factors of production at cheap products. That means labor is cheap in this. So if we want to be globally competitive, we have to keep our prices at that level. If the labor cost increases, then we will not be competitive. So in such a scenario, the condition of labor is not going to improve. So it is suggested that we should make a transition from a factor-driven economy to an innovation-driven economy. We should be innovative. Our product should be different. It should be unique. If a product is unique, then it can command a higher price. That way, the condition of labor will also increase. Just example, the different kind of products of those speakers that we see. They're expensive, but people purchase because they are different. They're innovative. Apple products are expensive, maybe because of some sort of innovation they have, different thinking they have. So we need to make a transition from a factor-driven economy to an innovation-driven economy. Apart from this, we need to have more involvement of social partners, NGOs, they should also participate in different kind of programs for skill development. We should encourage more and more people's participation in this. We should have more awareness about skill development. We need to break this traditional mindset that we have. So this is about the different challenges when it comes to skill development. And with this, we also come to the conclusion, come to the end of the session about different issues related to our education sector. So in this session, we started with the disparities in education, how along different lines we have disparities. Then we discussed some of the challenges in our education sector, specific focus on primary education. Then we discussed some of the challenges when it comes to higher education sector. We also discussed R&D, what is the status of research and development in India, how we are lacking behind. Then at the end we discussed skill development, what are some of the challenges. Now what are some of the initiatives that are going on for all these things? For example, primary education, we are focusing on micro education, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Also for targeting certain sections of the population who are lagging behind, we also have some specific schemes, policies. For example, Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayah, targeting girl child and specifically the tribal girl child. Different states also have their own interventions. When it comes to skill development, for example, what we are trying to do. In recent times, we have initiated Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, National Apprenticeship Protsahan Yojana. We are also targeting skill development among certain sections of the population. Nai Roshni, Nai Manzil, it is targeting girls, it is targeting women. Similarly, we are targeting Muslim youth in Jammu Kashmir in my program, program. Those who are engaged in traditional art and craft, for them, USPAR, different another scheme for development of traditional arts and crafts. So different initiatives have been launched for education as well as for skill development. So all these things, if you come across in your book or economic survey, from that also you can put it. In case you are coming across any specific case studies, we can also include that. So with this, we conclude this session on illiteracy and disparities in education.